Hello and welcome to Banya Chat. I hope you're all doing very well this afternoon. Today I am here with Heavens and Recibo. We've been doing Banya Chat for a while now, and over this time we've gathered up a few of your questions and a few of your comments, and we just want to go through them and find out what you want to know. This is just a live Q&A that you can ask us any question that you wish, and we will answer them as best we can. So, hello, Heavens and Receiver. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Would you like to get into some questions?
Yeah, sure. Bring it on.
Okay.
Yeah, we are ready for this.
All right, you're ready. Awesome to hear. Okay, so I think the first question that we should answer is, what is the difference between fostering and adoption?
Okay, good one. Yeah. So fostering is when you take in a child or look after a child, provide them with temporary accommodation, maybe because they don't have anywhere to go or they don't have close relatives that the council can place them with or social services can place them with. So they will be placed with you in your house with your family. So you provide them accommodation and a family life for a temporary period up until they're able to move on. So this is an arrangement that is just done between the council and the foster carer. There is really no legal obligation for the foster parent to over the child. So the guardianship is shared, or the foster carer is given what we call a delegated authority, which is a temporary authorization that allows the foster carer to look after the child on behalf of the council or the birth parents in certain circumstances. So it's a temporary kind of arrangement, which is just entered into between the council and the foster carer. So after a while, obviously, the child will move on and do other things and move on to either to back to their parents or to another placement.
Right.
And then adoption, on the other hand, this is now a very legal process where the court actually transfers the guardianship or the custodianship of the child away from the council or from the birth parents, or that is if they're no longer able to look after the child. It transfers that guardianship on legally to the new parents. So the new parents actually become the parents, the legal parents or the legal guardian of the child, and they're now able to actually, do what normal parents can do, and the child can actually take on a new name and move on as the child of the adopter. So the adoption is basically really a legal transfer of rights, and fostering is just a temporary arrangement that allows the foster carer to look after a child for a specified period of time. So those are like the main differences, really.
Right. So the fostering is more of a temporary from the ages of a young child to 18. Is that
Yeah,
correct? And then adoption is more for entire life.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, fostering is from 1 hour, all the way to, just before they hit 18, before they're an adult. So they can be looked after in a foster care. But the foster carer never becomes the legal guardian of the child. The child always belongs, the responsibility over the child always remains on the council, which is the corporate kind of co-parent, if you like. Yeah, so the foster parent is just, the custodian, whereas the adoption is actually the parent taking over, or the courts actually transferring the rights for the adopter to become the legal parent.
Okay, lovely, thank you. And so this is the one of the biggest questions I think we've had on Banya Chat, and I see it in the comments very, 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 very often. How much do foster parents get paid? I think this one is more for Recibo. Would you like to answer this one?
Yeah, I'll try.
Okay.
First of all, I think what I would say is that, I mean, we don't regard this as pay, but rather it's called an allowance. That's hence why we say fostering allowance. So depending on the needs of each and every child, this can range from, in terms of weekly pay, from £400 up to something just, £10 short of £600, which is £590 or so. Let me emphasize it. This depends on the needs of a child, and that is per child. We also have an allowance for what we call parent and child allowance, which is around £600 per week. If you calculate that, we can actually talk of something like 20,000, per year, and there is an exemption from tax, depending on how much you get. And what we have done, in the previous weeks, we actually managed to put together, an info pack which can be sent to anyone right now straight away. You can inbox us and we can send that to you. And also we have a video that provide an in-depth, breakdown of the allowance and all the questions and how it works, and all the nitty-gritties of how this money is spent on the child and also on the foster carer. There's a video that has provided that on our YouTube channel. It's also on Instagram, even here on our Facebook page, and a link can be shared to you. If you actually inbox us, probably you might struggle to locate it. But that's what in the meantime, for now, that's what I can say. I repeat, it depends on the needs of the child. And so, for example, if it's from £400 up to 600 on 590 per child, you can have a sibling group. You may have one room that is available, and your room is big enough to actually take 2 beds or even a bunk bed, where 2 siblings. When we say siblings, it has to be of the same sex, sharing a bedroom. You're being paid in that one room. You're being paid for the 2 children individually. So, and then if you have 2 rooms and probably you got a sibling group of 2, they're regarded as one placement, but they are being paid as individuals. And then another room can have another young person. So you have 3, 450, 400 pounds times 3, because it's per child. I'm just giving that as an example. So already that's, quite a lot of money, coming your way in terms of the work and the support that you're giving these children. So one might look at it as in one child, but you can actually, if you got more space, you can actually make use of that space. Even one room can end up, giving you 2 lots of, allowance because you got 2 children who are siblings.
Right. So this allowance is based off of per child and not per bedroom. Yes.
It's per child, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Or per placement.
Right. Per placement.
Sorry, no. Because actually, if a sibling group can be referred as a placement as one, so it's per child. Yes.
Per child. Okay, not per placement. So if you had triplets or something, then that would count as 3 individual children.
Yes.
And if you had the 1, it's only just the 1.
Yes.
Okay, and obviously these this allowance increases depending on the needs of the child, and I'm guessing the requirements of the foster carer as well.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Obviously, like we said, we do have a video that goes more in detail of this on our YouTube, which is Banya Fostering, and the video is titled "Fostering Allowances." So it is also on our Instagram and also on our Facebook videos. If you would like to go into more into further detail with that. We can also send you a pack, an information pack. So if you wish to have one of those, please contact us and we will send it to you. We will gladly send it to you. Right. So there are other questions. So for example, how long does it take to become a foster carer? And obviously, what are the steps to becoming a foster carer?
Okay, yeah. Well, the general guidance that we give is that it takes up to 8 months to become, a foster carer. But, as an agency, we do not really want to drag on a case for 8 months because we do know that, this is your life that we're talking about. But, there are very important steps that we need to take, which we cannot fast track or bypass, so that hence the process takes a bit of time. So generally would like to get everything kind of like concluded, done within a space of 5 months or even less. But the worst kind of the most we can stretch it is 8 months. And we cannot really go beyond that period. So the key issues really has to do with your availability for things like meetings and assessments that need to happen. So, for example, when you want to become a foster carer, we want to come and see the house. We want to come and see you. You also see us. We talk to you. We look at your house. We look at your space. We give you a chance to answer questions, and we try and give you as much information as possible to really help you to make the decisions that will work for you and your family setup. So, and during that time, we also give you training, which we call Skills to Foster, which also gives you a very in-depth kind of introduction into the world of fostering. That as well also helps you to really, get all the information and give you rounded, solid information that helps you and your family to decide as well. And we also do checks, the necessary checks that we need to do, like your DBS check, your local authority check, references, and we also take you through a medical, which we pay for. All of it we pay for anyway. So all that is necessary. And once everything is come back, all the reports are back, we also then assign an assessing social worker who actually then does a bit more work, just putting a bit more flesh, information gathering, and actually doing the assessment, assessing you as a family, coming up with the family profile, creating the family profile that we will present at our panel. As a report on our findings on why we think that you you can be a good foster carer. So that process in itself includes a series of meetings with you to get information. For example, like, okay, we can do your family tree. For example, tell us about your family tree. Tell us about your history. Where you went to school. Your first job. If you moved countries or if you're whatever. So we try and create a pen picture of where you're coming from as a family or as an individual, and that helps to paint a very good picture of some of the issues that you've had in the past, and we try and create and present you as a family or as an individual who can really become a good support for any child. So that process takes time, and it means that you have to be available. So based on availability, especially on the part of the applicants, sometimes the process can be long or short, and also based on how quickly we are able to get responses from places like the local authority, DBS, also responses from references, also responses from your GP. So for example, right now, if you were to book a medical with your GP, they can tell you, oh, we have an availability in 3 weeks. So we can't shake that to 1 week. So we have to wait for everything to come through. So the process then takes a bit long, but the beauty of it is that it allows you to really look at everything properly, carefully. It allows us as well to give you support and information and prepare you and your family for the new role in fostering. And from our experience, that period actually is a very good time to prepare you and to get you ready for the role. So 8 months at most is the cutoff period.
Right. And of course, like if what happens if can I like stop the process, or can I put the process on pause if something happens in my life?
Yeah, absolutely. The way we work is it's teamwork. The the issue about fostering, it's not like we coming into your house, you're not a bunch of robots that we just program to say, okay, this is what you need to do. But we know that, all our foster carers, they're family people, they're individuals, they've got their private life. But what we try and do is we try and work with you to make sure that, we prepare you. We give you information, support, and we take you through the assessment process as well. So if you decide or something changes, or maybe if you're single or you get married, or maybe if you're a couple, you get a baby, you're expecting a new child, that changes everything. So we have to stop and say, okay, what's going on? What would you want to do? So it's all about you telling us what you want to do. And if it's your decision to stop, then yes, by all means we'll stop. And also, if we notice something that we feel is a bit of a concern that may stop you from being approved, we can actually stop as well the process and say, hey, let's look at this and let's look at that. Let's see how we can resolve it. So it's about teamwork, us working together to make sure we get a good result.
Mm-hmm. And when you say issues that might pop up, would this be something, for example, can you foster with like maybe a criminal record or something like that? Because I'm sure that has to be checked as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced instances like that in the past. So, for example, we can do a DBS check, and whilst we're waiting for a DBS check, it comes back with a criminal record. Again, we'll have to look at the nature of the criminal record and how recent as well it is. Is it a spanned record? If it's spanned, what is the nature of the criminal record? So, if it's anything that delves in the area of children, or grievous bodily harm, and things of that nature, yeah, then the agency decision maker may decide to stop the process, especially if the incident has been very recent. Then yeah, we can decide to stop the assessment for that reason. But in most cases, even when there's a criminal record, it doesn't stop you from becoming a foster carer. Parking tickets, all those kind of stuff. Yeah. But then again, there is something that we also now do, which we ask people who rent houses, or whether from a private landlord or housing association, to make sure that you get consent, because we've noticed that sometimes we assume that the landlord is okay, and then when we get to a certain point, the landlord says, no, you can't use my house for fostering, so that stops the process again. So we try and get you to talk to your landlord quite early on, so that it doesn't stop you from becoming a foster carer.
Can I just come in, Tom, and
Yes,
add something? So one thing that can also stop your application is, even if you had an criminal offense spent, or a very trivial, probably it happened so many years ago, if you fail to disclose it, and then the DBS comes with it, no matter how trivial it is, I mean, the fact that you did not disclose it when we asked you to sign in the declaration of all offenses, then that can actually bring your application to a stop.
So that's all about transparency and being transparent with the agency.
Absolutely.
Yes, from the onset, yeah.
Okay, cool.
And maybe to add to the as well, Tom, maybe you stay with somebody, you've got a child, or you've got somebody that you live with whom when we do a DBS check on them, it comes back with adverse results. That again can stop the assessment. So it will be a decision that you have to make, whether if it's somebody who's staying with you temporarily, do you really want to do fostering enough? Or do you want to just let it go, depending on the nature of the report. But a DBS from somebody, a family member staying in the house, can stop the process as well.
Right. I think that answered a few of the questions there. For example, there was one that we had was, can you foster if you rent? And you said yes, you can, but you need the landlord's permission. Yours, and I would like to go, and you can foster if you are single. You've touched on that, and you obviously said yes, you can. But obviously, and the other one is can you foster with like people who, if you live in, if you own the house and you either rent the house out or you have other people staying in the house, like lodgers or non-family members, but you said that they have to be background checked as well?
Yes,
Of some
not,
type.
not only that, but I also think it's important, especially when you have a lodger in the house or somebody that you're staying with. It could be a close family individual. Obviously, they need to be aware that you want to do fostering, and they need to be an agreement as well. That's very important. And then once that is established, then we can then do a DBS check, because they also have to consent to a DBS check being done, and also a local authority check. They'll also be subject to a local authority check as well. So they have to consent to all of that. So it's important to discuss your plan to foster with whoever is staying in the house. And then obviously it also depends on how much space is left as well as extra. So so we cannot really start an assessment based on a pretext to say, well, I've got my nephew staying in the house, he's going to leave after 2 months, so by the time we get to approval, he would have left, he or she would have left. Sometimes it's not very, it's not very good to do. So we'll probably just stop the assessment until the time when you have actually got a vacant room that we can work with.
Yeah, so I just thank you very much. I think that clears up quite a lot of the uncertainties and questions that we had. There have been a few questions from chat that I think some excellent questions in chat. For example, there's one saying, is there an age limit on people who can foster, or a minimum age, or even a maximum age, maybe?
I can pick this one. I'll try. So when it comes to age, one has to be at least 21 years old. The purpose of the assessment process is to establish certain an aspects of the person, of the household, rather. So through it, if you're able to parent, to look after, and you can provide support to a child who needs a home, then from the age of 21 going up, you're eligible. So when it comes then to the maximum age, obviously it's your ability to be able to look after the child. If your physical ability or any other aspect of your well-being affects or impacts on your ability to look after a child, then probably the assessment will look into those things to see if you can still, you're in a position to offer the needed or required support to a child. But I mean, in general, I mean, I don't know, Heavens, who in terms of the oldest application you've ever come across, applicants?
I think, yeah, I think it's, I've had people over 60 applying to be, foster carers. The key thing is you have to be medically fit. That's the key thing. You have to be medically fit to foster, and we won't take your word for it. We'll take your GP's word for it, and our medical advisor's word for it, to make sure that you are medically fit to foster. So you may be 30 and feel fit, but you may have the energy levels of a 70-year-old. So we'll let your doctor decide that. And then you may be 60 and think, maybe I'm too old, but then your doctor, when they do a medical, they say, hey, you're as fit as a 40-year-old. So there you go. So I think it's about how you feel, but not just how you feel, but also obviously whether your doctor agrees. It's like somebody who says, I've stopped smoking. Again, we won't take your word for it. We'll say, hey, take us to, let's hear it from the GP and from the professionals. Let them tell us that, yes, indeed, you are medically fit to foster. So that's an important thing. But any age, as long as you are, but in particular, what Zero said, 21, obviously, and then obviously up. As long as you feel that you are able to do what needs to be done, take the child to school, respond quickly to any emergencies, you're able to read, you're able to write, you're able to give oral reports, you're able to like right now, everything is moving on to online, you're able to learn, especially if you've never used a computer, you're still able to learn, and you're able to attend trainings, you're able to attend meetings for the child. All those things, you have to think about it. Say, am I going to be able to really do what needs to be done? So we help you help you to discover that about yourself. That's why the process is long. So we invite you, come as you are, and then we'll show you, we'll discuss that to say, hey, do you think you are able to? And then you decide for yourself whether you feel like you're really able to once you've really understood the whole scope of what fostering is all about.
Yeah, can I come in, Tom, if you don't mind?
Yeah,
I'm just gonna, shift the tables a little bit and come back to Evans on something that he said. You mentioned about being able to read and write, and I sit or as a panel administrator, I've come across applications where maybe one of the partners, in their English, their ability to read or to speak English is not up to scratch. I mean, what's our take? What do you say there?
Yeah, well, what we do is if we notice that maybe you are not, English is not, obviously it's not your first language, and it's a bit of an issue, we actually encourage you to go for English classes. And most of the people that we have assessed over time, it's something that they are already aware of. So, when somebody is not able to speak English, it's not something that they're not aware of. They know it already. So most people just need that further push to say, hey, just go for extra classes. And we also want to look at your support as well, to say, okay, who else is around you? Who can help you in terms of, so most people will have children who are quite eloquent, who can speak English well, so they can be a support, maybe the husband or the wife, depending on who's stronger. But if we notice that both, if you're a couple or a single person, English is a really big challenge for you, we may delay the process a little bit to allow you to get more, English lessons, because you would need those to speak to the local authority, to speak to the child social worker, to speak to your Banya social worker, to engage with other social workers, so English becomes very important. So we at least encourage you to get, a reasonable amount of, English language ability, because that will help you go a long way in helping you on your journey.
Lovely. Thank you very much. I would like to move on to another question, and I've got quite a few questions that I would like to answer. Do I have to have a spare room if I only want to foster babies who will be in my room?
Well, ideally, the minimum requirement is that there has to be a spare room. There has to be a spare room. I think that's the minimum requirement, because we can never assess anybody who does not have a spare room. Because even if you take on a baby, we've got various instances where somebody just takes on a child for an hour, just for an hour, looking after a baby for an hour, and then 18, 10, 17 years later, they're still there. You see, so those cases happen. And if you don't have a spare room, what happens if you get married or you get another baby coming? You are a registered foster carer. You don't have a spare room. You're looking after a baby, and then you also get pregnant or you get married, and your husband or your wife says, no, we can't be looking after a child, so that changes the dynamic. So the most practical and sensible and the allowable thing is to always make sure that there is an identified spare room which will be dedicated to the child. So even if you stay with the baby in your room, but still there has to be a dedicated room which is for the foster child.
Okay, so one of the requirements of becoming a foster carer is you have to have a spare room.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Another question. These are excellent questions, by the way. Thank you very much, everyone who's watching and asking these. How often will I have training to attend, and can I do it online? I'm guessing this is more of a recent thing as well, because of everything that's going on.
Yeah, maybe Rizzo can add to that. But Banya, we give training. We have training going on every month. Especially when you are a registered foster carer, we have training going on every month, once a month at least. With some months when it gets very exciting and there's more information to share, it can be twice a month. But at most, you can expect one training every month, and really once a month. That's quite good. So. Before COVID, obviously we were doing face-to-face trainings, but of late, because we've got carers all over the country, we are now offering as well online trainings as well.
Lovely.
Yeah, I can just add to say yes. As Heaven said, every month we have a calendar. So let me explain how it works. Just a little bit. So at the big, throughout the year or every year, every social worker has to sit down with their foster carer and do what we call a training needs analysis. So they identify all the needs that each and every carer has. We have a training manager who takes all that information to then formulate, a training program for Banya, but also that training schedule is informed by any changes in regulations or by frequently asked questions that we come across when carers are asking us, at our head office, and also an influx of let's say we always have new carers, so we balance that the current carers and the new carers in terms of the trainings, and over and above that, then we have bespoke trainings that can be done online, again based on the needs of each and every carer. There is online training, and our carers have got an account. They're registered and they've got access to this, and they can do this anytime and from home in the space. And if they require any assistance, that is given. As Heavens mentioned, we're now also doing our Zoom, training on Zoom. We have not stopped, and it's convenient in terms of people being settled at home in one place and all that kind of stuff. But we have adapted it to not make it too long, also we have actually had to come up with a lot of new trainings to meet the current needs, in terms of what carers are going through. Because some carers, we're stuck with children for 24 hours. And whereas before COVID, children would go to school and you have that space, but now you've got children 24 hours and you have to look after them. So we have to kind of create trainings that are tailor-made to suit, to help our carers in the current situation. And just to also say that we actually have 24 support as Banya, 24-hour support, if I'm sorry for that, where you have access to a social worker. And if you have any question, you're not sure about something, you can simply call them. If anything that you want to discuss, you have access to a social worker, you have access to someone that will be able to help you and support you in that aspect, in that moment. Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. So Banya supports its carers, it has 24/7 support. It's excellent. Another question we've had from chat is, can I move my birth child onto the sofa to free a spare bedroom for fostering?
That's interesting.
Yes.
But as funny as it sounds, it's actually a very good question of the realities of things that actually happen in the world of fostering. well, you can tell obviously it's somebody who's got a big heart and they really want to, support the child, but you cannot support the looked after child by, giving your own birth child less, support. I mean, so I'll imagine you're allowing the looked after child to have a bedroom and then your own child is on the sofa. So over time, that whole situation is not going to work out well in real terms, even if the child accepts. But I think that just by being moved to the sofa, it's almost like you're moving your own child to the curb. So I think the most ideal situation is to make sure that you have a spare room. If you've got your own birth children, they have access to their own bedroom. So, and then the looked after child also has access to their own bedroom. That way, you're able to maintain, the balance in the house and, good family relations. You're still able to meet the needs of your own birth children without compromising your fostering role. But I think it's not advisable to do that, and we certainly would not work in a situation like that. Would always want a spare room to be available.
I mean, obviously, these people want to help, but they shouldn't limit their own child's comfort for a foster child.
Exactly. So all the needs, all the children, birth children, foster children, all of them, all their lives matter, if I put it like that. So we want to make sure that all their needs are met. So it will not look well if your birth child is now on the sofa and the foster child is in the bedroom. I think it's not a very ideal situation. So we would not support that. We would always want to make sure that you have access to a spare room.
Yeah, of course. So spare room is a necessity. And before you even consider becoming a foster carer, you must have a spare room. Okay, we've got a good question here. Can I be approved if I do not have a spare room, but I'm willing to foster a baby or toddler that can share a room with the adult?
Maybe Rosario can help with this, but from my own experience, and obviously, we always, again, I come back to the issue of spare room. Space is always important, because the space that is for adults, especially if it's a bedroom, it's not really an ideal place for a child to be. If it's a toddler, what happens if they grow up? Or what happens if the adults, they just need, you just need your own space. What happens? So I think it's always important for us to make sure that there is access to a spare room, which will be dedicated to the child, even if the toddler will be staying with you in your own bedroom. But we want to make sure that the child still has access to their own room, as a minimum requirement before we even start assessment. We also want to make sure that yes, whilst you look after the child in your room, if it's a toddler, it's very important for us to have a spare room for the child. Perhaps Rosario can add a few thoughts to that.
Yes, I think, Evans, you've actually answered that well, in terms of, yes, a child might come to you as a toddler, but the child is going to grow. I think Evans said this before when he was describing the difference between a foster carer and adoption, foster caring and fostering and adoption. He said a child can come to you intended to. It happens. It actually happened. Nyasha often shares about a child who was meant to be looked at for an hour, and then there was a misunderstanding and miscommunication. That young person ended up being with Banya for a year, for 18 years. So yes, a child might come. You might have the situation. A child might be in an adult's room for a short period of time, but they will eventually grow and everything else. So, you, unless otherwise, I don't know. I mean, you know, if you get a very big room in you know, that can then later on be demarcated, you know, but that's a very tricky situation because
Yeah.
we need space for the child, you know, as we wean them off anyway, as they're growing. They will need to be.
Yeah, they'll need to have their own space.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you can imagine a child as they grow. You know, they also want space to crawl. You know, at a bedroom sometimes there are a lot of safeguarding issues to look into as well. You know, regarding the safety of the child. You know, around, you know, depending on what's in the bedroom as well. So you know, so definitely a spare room is a must.
And also this, you should meant, like, if you are trying to become a foster, if you are becoming a foster carer and you currently do not, if you're currently in the process of moving to a house or a place that has a spare room, but your current living situation isn't, but you are moving there, that will be also be taken into consideration as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about it's all about being open and transparent, like you said earlier, Tom. It's all about being transparent. If, for example, you're moving houses, and then there has to be considerable. Uh, the, the moving process should be at a very advanced stage where we know for sure that yes, you are moving. Either you've bought a new house or you've acquired a new place, but it would be very difficult for us to start an assessment based on an intended move, which hasn't actually started, because we know how long it takes to find a house these days. So it's always better to say, hey, I'm planning to move. So what we'll say to you is, okay, well, once you've moved, let us know. Or once you've acquired the house and you're just waiting to move, but the house has already been acquired, let us know, because then we know we know what we're working with, because we have to come and have a look at the house that you're moving into as well.
Right.
Can I just add something to say? Part of our initial visit to a property, we go and measure, you know, the room that is you know, intended to be for the child. So we need to see the room, the space, because in our paperwork we have to describe, you know, the room itself, how big it is, and everything else. You know, so we cannot start something, a process when we don't even, when there isn't any property yet. You know, there's only an intention to move. So it becomes a bit difficult and tricky. What if the move does not happen? What if something happened along the way and that you can't move? What if the landlord then say, let's say if you are renting, says no, you can't foster when you then find the house, unless you are buying it. But there are also, we just need to see the house.
Right. I think we should move on, because there are quite a few more questions that we'd need to get through, because this is a question and answer, and we would like to get through all of your lovely questions. So we have one here. If I have adult birth children who is involved in criminal activities but does not live with me, however they visit regularly, will this affect my application to foster?
It may. It depends on what sort of criminal convictions that they have, and how often they visit the house. So we can't stop you. We can't stop your birth child from visiting your house. So we will look at the nature of the criminal convictions that the birth child has, and then we'll then make a decision based on what is actually on the ground. It's all about the facts. So, and it's all case by case. But if you have a child who's a birth child, adult child who has a criminal conviction, it does not stop you from fostering. It all just depends on the nature of the convictions, again, and also how often they visit the house. So it's all dealt on a case by case basis.
Okay, lovely. So it's just case by case basis. Okay. We have one more. If I have a child of a different religion in my house, can I still celebrate my religion?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like the other child who is from a different religion should be able to celebrate their own religion whilst they're in your household. Yeah, no one's rights are taken away in any way. No, you accommodate each other. So yes, you will, as a household, continue to celebrate your religion, and whatever you celebrate, and at the same time, the child that comes with their own religion should be supported, and continue to celebrate and observe their religion as required or as they wish to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and to add to that as well, part of the assessment, part of what we discuss with you, because maybe some people have uh, we have a very therapeutic approach to the way we recruit people, because we don't bundle you into a van and say, hey, let's go, come on, get into fostering. But we actually discuss these things with you way before we get an assessing social worker to come and finish up the rest of the assessment. So we talk about these things. We ask you about, especially if you're a person of faith, we actually delve into that area to say, okay, fine. For example, if you're Muslim, okay, what are your thoughts about looking after a child who's from a different religion? We explore that because we want to discuss that to see if it's going to be a problem. If it is, then we'll try and look for solutions. If we cannot agree on a solution, then we can agree to disagree and say, okay, fine, until maybe we agree, then we can we can carry forward. But in most cases, it's all about understanding and being able to meet the needs of the child without obviously compromising your own faith. So, for example, if you come from a Christian background and you've got maybe people who come from your church into the house, we'll ask you about that to say, hey, are you willing to get everybody who comes into your house, either for a prayer meeting, DBS checked? Because obviously, when you have a child in the house, we need to make sure that we safeguard the child. So we explore all those things and then we find solutions. Say, okay, what compromises can we make? What sort of adjustments can we make? So those are things that we look at in detail uh, with, with a view of helping you to understand the adjustments that you need to make. That also helps you and empowers you to make a decision whether fostering is really for you. And the key thing is information and support. Once you've got information and support, most of the people that come through us, they will be able to adjust and still be able to get into fostering, regardless of their faith.
We have more. Lovely, thank you. I already have safety cameras within my home. Will that be a problem if I am fostering? Do they mean like security cameras on the outside?
Yeah, yeah. I'm getting I get the question. You know, if safety cameras are outside for security purposes, outside the building or around the building, yeah, that's understandable, but not in the home, in the house where the living room is got cameras, or any part of the house in the inside has got cameras. I think that's something that we can discuss and enlighten each other on the of safeguarding matters, because it becomes it's not something that we encourage, or it's not something that really that will work. You might need to actually remove anything that is within the build, that is in the house, because there's privacy, isn't it? So you and with your children, you may be okay with it. Once you have somebody else that comes in, it's not something. It's something that might have to be removed. But outside the building, for security purposes, entrance, into the house, yeah, understandable. You can have any cameras that you want out there. But in the house, yeah, that would be something that needs to be removed.
Okay, lovely. Well, we thank you so much for all your questions. If you have any more questions, please leave your comments below or send us a message. We will get to you as quickly as possible. We will answer all your questions. Once again, if you want more information, send us a message. We'll send you an information pack. Thank you very much for being here. We love hearing all your questions. We apologize if we didn't get to your question, but thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tom, for having us. Looking forward to next week.
Thank you for answering these questions. we love. I hope to see you again at some point. I mean,
Yeah,
we'll be
definitely.
here. We'll be here next week answering more questions and more things about fostering.
Sure.
Thank you.